Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here. Everyone who's already in the chat. Thanks, Spiky Turf and Yolanda and Stone the Crow. Thanks for being here. Um, so I wanted to kind of put this together. Um, just because, well, one, it's a book that I often talk about, but I haven't really done a big deep dive into it. And so I wanted to go into it. So, what I'm going to talk to today, so I kind of want to do kind of a half and half. I want to I want to lecture at you a little bit. I want to bring you in. I'm not going to lecture at you. I'm going to I hopefully am going to help you see some depth into this book and why it's so important. The book I'm going to talk about is Gavin de Becker, The Gift of Fear. If you have not read this book, it's a really good book. I plan on doing more than one deep dive into this. I kind of made an outline. I made an outline of what I want to talk about tonight. My guesstimation is that this outline is probably going to take me roughly an hour, maybe not a full hour, but as some of you know, as some of you who know me know, I can be a little bit long-winded. Okay, so hold on. I am getting my notes up. If I can. Now I lost my notes. Where did I put my notes? Let's see here. Uh, there we go. Okay, so here are my notes. So I want to talk about The Gift of Fear, and then there is another book that I want to show you because I don't know if you've seen it. He has a companion book called Protecting the Gift, and this is specifically about child safeguarding. So I think along with The Gift of Fear, Protecting the Gift is also a very good book. Both are excellent. This one covers just a little bit of the same material, but it is its own book that is worth reading. And hello, Eleanor, and hello, Leslie, and hello, Watkins family. Is Watkins who I think it is? Anyway, hello, Lumpy Custard and Crumbly. I appreciate you all being here so much. So I want to go through some of the insights of the book that I think are especially important to those of us who are speaking out on this issue. I also think it's really important to our activism to know these things, whether or not you are a frontline activist or whether or not you are a keyboard activist or an activist in your hometown. However you're doing your activism, I think the material covered in these books is very important, and I want to kind of take you a little bit more deeply into it. Then my plan is to have a call-in because I would like us to, in a way, go into this book in a participatory way. Oh, good. It is Maddie. I thought so. I want to go into this book in a participatory way so that we can share stories as a way to expound on the material, because I think one, that's always a useful way to do learning, and two, I think specifically to this material, it's a really important way to delve into the material and as well as to witness one another. So I want to observe something that I have continued to observe to you, which is that when we think of this identity movement or the gender movement, whatever we call it, we look at. I have always looked at what are the underlying values. So of course, these are people who are denying sex. These are people who are trying to medicalize kids. They think men can be women, but what's the value? I mean, those are the things that they're doing, but what is the value underneath that? So to me, these are values of dissociation. So when we deny sex, we're dissociating from our body. Okay. When these are people who think that uh, being one identity, one sex identity or the other is a thing that you can purchase. So they think that the value of that is commodification. They're commodifying bodies. They also think that our parts are separate and interchangeable. So this is compartmentalization. Also, when they teach this to kids or when they ask us to practice the language of wrong sex pronouns, this is a cognitive dissonance. So, all of these things. Oh, and then of course, they think that a woman is a way you can look. That is objectification. So, objectification, commodification, compartmentalization, cognitive dissonance, these are all the values of dissociation. Okay. So what we are wanting to do, or what I hope to do, I hope that this has been my ongoing mantra since I came into this work. My key thing besides my activism, right? My activism is the fight. That's where I fight against this issue. But the other side of the activism is what I value into the world. It's the offering. If we want to dismantle a system of wrongthink, we also have to offer something. So to me, we're offering embodiment. The value, the opposite value of dissociation is the value of embodiment. And the key pieces of embodiment, just like we saw what the key pieces of dissociation were, the key pieces of embodiment are our sense perceptions, our instincts, our pattern recognition, and our intuition. So these are the pieces of the embodiment. And yeah, that's a great point, Maddie. And I think I've heard Aaron Friday say this before. They are dissociated in a virtual world. Just even the fact of being online for so many hours a day, for many of us, it's a dissociative activity. And then there is one final dissociation that I'll talk about, which is the dissociation of external validation seeking. So this whole identity dogma is about seeking external validation from another. So, in order for me to be validated, if I say I'm a man, I need you to participate and call me a he, him. And if I don't get that from you, then I am not validated. So, this is creating a system where I require other people's participation for me to have emotional equilibrium and psychological integrity. So this puts you, if you require external validation constantly to be in balance with your own identity, this puts you in an unstable place. So again, this is a dissociative place, and we all should be able, if we want to have psychological health, if we want to have emotional health, then we should be in control of our own emotional equilibrium, of our own psychological integrity. I should not require anyone else to be a participant in my identity. Okay. For me to have stability, I should be able to have it on my own. It doesn't require the participation of others, because I should have the kind of emotional stability and psychological integrity that, you can call me a man, you can call me ugly. Maybe it hurts my feelings. Like, I don't think, if you called me ugly a bunch of times, like, probably would hurt my feelings, but it wouldn't change my own sense of my identity. It wouldn't make me have an unstable identity, because I have resiliency. I have emotional equilibrium and a psychological integrity. I am sure of my sense of self. I'm stable. So, before I get into the book, I also want to say that many of us are here doing this work. Now, of course, some of us are here because we're parents, or we just care about it. But some of us are also here because we are triggered, because this triggers our wounds. Now, some of you have already heard me talk about archetypes. So archetypes are different than stereotypes in that archetypes are Archetypes are psychological components that are true for the collective, like the mother, the warrior, the lover. These are archetypal patterns, psychological archetypes. They're not reducible to a stereotype or a trope. They're broader than that. So one of the archetypes is the wounded healer. The wounded healer is that place where we carry our personal wound, a childhood wound, a trauma, and that is the place that we are here to heal from. So sometimes these wounds that we have, they trigger us into a healing position. Now, this is true of me. I was raped. I was dissociated from my body. I was out of equilibrium. I did not have those things that I talk about now. I did not have that emotional equilibrium. I did not have that psychological integrity because I went into a place of dissociation after that trauma. Now, these are things that I've worked really hard to have. I've done a lot of different kinds of work that I talk about in my retreats and I talk about elsewhere. But to me, this is really the wounded healer. This is now the work that I do because of that is where I was triggered to with my wound. So many of us are here. Hey, Abel, it's so good to see you. It's so good to see everyone in the comments, by the way. I'm letting them go by because I'm not going to always, I'll put them up as I see fit, just so everyone knows. But I don't want to, I have a little like pre-planned thing that I'm saying before I get into kind of our more group discussion and start taking calls. Um, oh, I love that. Yeah, wounds, wolves. So anyway, so this work that we do, many of us are called to it because it activates a trigger in us. So I'm here, I feel like my call to this particular activism to fight for boundaries for women and girls, to fight for stereotype non sex stereotype non-conforming children to be able to be healthy and love their bodies. I do this work because it activates that past trauma in me. And I feel called to take this healing work that I've done for myself and to offer it to others. So I think that's a really important point to name for all of us. And many of us feel that. I'm going to turn my notifications off for just a moment. We'll just do it for a little bit. So and I also want to observe for all of us that we are facing a massive gaslighting. So, this is especially troubling for those of us who have wounds in this area to be facing a massive gaslighting. Of course, this is obvious for a man to tell me he's a woman and ask me to participate in it. That's gaslighting, and same vice versa. Or even for someone to tell me they're a they, them, and neither a man nor a woman, that is a gaslighting. So, in the face of this massive gaslighting, to be able to trust my sense perceptions, to be able to trust my intuition, to be able to trust my instinct, these are very key to fighting this fight that we are fighting. And it's very key to be able to offer these things as an alternative. I'm going to put this comment up there for a moment. It's really weird how they reject society. So yeah, they reject society, but they want us to be inclusive. So their inclusivity that is a little wedge word. That's actually a gaslighting word that they use because they act like inclusivity is a bigger, stronger value than other values. They act like to be inclusive is some ultimate value that we should hold up. Now, inclusivity is really great. I say this all the time. It's really great for like a third grade birthday party, and you invite the whole class, and you're very inclusive. So that is when inclusivity is a great thing. Now, when you are trying to safeguard single sex spaces, Inclusivity is not the best value to hold up. Boundaries are the best value to hold up at that point. So they are using inclusivity as a wedge to get rid of boundaries. And inclusivity is this sloganeering kind of propaganda word that they're using to cut through boundaries. And yes, it is absolutely narcissism. It's terrible. So I want to Gavin Becker. So as we get into this book, I kind of interchangeably use the words instinct and intuition. He uses the word intuition a lot more, and I like both words. I think they do different things, and I want to differentiate them right here, right now. So to me, an instinct is the response that we have that comes directly from our senses, from what we taste, touch, hear, see. It is our fight or flight. It is sex recognition, and it is sense perception. Our instinct is, touching the hot pan and recoiling, seeing a rattlesnake or hearing a rattlesnake and running the other way. It is sex recognition itself, because we are a sexually dimorphic species. All sexually dimorphic species have sex recognition instincts. So these are the instincts. The intuition and the instincts, I want to say, the instincts are way back in that basal ganglia part of the skull. So that very lower part of the brainstem. Intuition is this middle portion. So intuition is our pattern recognition. It's a wordless portion. It's what they call the mammalian part of the brain. It's a wordless portion, and that's where pattern recognition happens. And that's where the intuition really resides, because the intuition is looking at the picture and putting these disparate parts together. It's pre-verbal. It happens at the level pre-words. And the intuition is like facial recognition. So sex recognition is more instantaneous. I know if you're a man or a woman. Facial recognition is like, I know this woman is Maddie, or this man is Abel. So that's the pattern recognition part of our brain. And then the prefrontal cortex, which is the newest part of our brain. This is the rational part of our brain. This is the part of our brain that does analysis. This is the part of our brain that understands how to read. It understands how to take abstract, alphabetic language systems and put them into words and make those words into sentences. And it does all of those abstract calculations. It's linear, it's sequential, it's plotting. Now, of course, it happens very quickly, but compared to how fast the mammalian brain processes or the instinctual brain processes, comparatively, it's slow and plotting. It doesn't take very long to read a sentence or to read a word, but comparatively, compared to my hand touching a hot pan, that prefrontal cortex analysis brain is a lot slower. So Gavin de Becker in the book, he observes back to us that the word intuition, the root of that word is tuere, and that word means to guard or protect. So I think that's a very interesting observation to make. And I also want to say another quote. So in Women's Body, Women's Wisdom, I don't know if any of you have read that book. It's also a very good book. Dr. Christiane Northrup calls the intuition the direct perception of truth or fact independent of any reasoning processes. So this is like when we know I don't trust that guy, or we know, we know there's something bad down that alley, or it's when we know something. This pattern recognition part of our brain. Oh, I'm so glad, Crumbly. I'm gonna, for those of you who have the book handy, when I call out I'll call out page numbers so you can look at it in the book if you want to. It's that direct sensing. And if you think about it, think about this, think about the intuition, like how we look at a picture. Okay, so you could look at Monet's water lilies. Okay, at one hand, on the one hand, you see the whole thing all at once. Okay, it makes an impression as a pattern on you all at once. Now on the other hand, you could close up into individual water lilies. You could close up onto the water, you could close up onto the water lilies, you could look at the picture in little parts, but the whole picture only makes sense all together, and your brain is registering the picture in an all at once way. You don't have to read a picture the way you do language. It's not a sequential linear process. It's an all at once synthesizing process. Your brain synthesizes that image all at once. And that's ultimately the part of your brain that is functioning when you are doing your intuition, when you're doing it. Hey, Heather, it's so good to see you here. Um, so we all have the gift of intuition. We all have this beautiful gift. And again, I just want to keep underlying for us, it's so important for all of us to work on this gift, which is a capacity, it's a skill set that we all have, because, and especially because it's important to our own safeguarding. It's really important to our safety, but even more than that, as a value, it is the antithesis value of disembodiment and dissociation. So Gavin de Becker says that we all have this. We all have the gift of a brilliant, he says, a brilliant internal guardian that stands ready to warn you of hazards and guide you through risky situations. And one of the great things in this book is that he gives so many examples of people honoring and listening to their intuition. And when I go to the call in portion, I really am curious to hear stories of people's intuitions. And maybe I'll start with one, because I'm going to start with a story. I think that'll be fun and grounding, and then I'm going to go through a little bit. I'm not going to obviously go through the whole book, but I've pulled out about 5 or 10 things that I want to cover. If I get too long-winded, I'll hold myself back. Because I can always do another video on this. So I want to leave a good amount of time to hear everyone's responses and to have you be able to participate. But I'm going to read a story first off. So this is a story someone sent me who can't come tonight. She goes to bed early, but she sent me this story. And it's a really short story, and I think we can get the idea of how the instinct or intuition is at work in this story. So in the story, she says, I was about 12. I lived on a street where there were lots of children and everyone knew everyone. And I was in the house of an older boy who was about 14. I had known him my whole life. We were playing board games with him. It was me, my friend, and her older brother. My friend and her older brother went home, so I was left alone with this other boy. I can't remember how, but I ended up in his bedroom. I was by the window, and he was on the other side of the bed between me and the door. Suddenly, I found myself in an uncomfortable situation. I was very innocent, but I knew this was dangerous. I have no memory of what he said, but I knew his intentions were not good. I also knew he was stronger than me and that I'd never be able to fight him off. On the spur of the moment, I said, if you don't let me out, I'll smash the window. And how will you explain that to your dad? I knew his father was extremely strict. He replied something like, you wouldn't, but I assured him that I would. He stood aside and I walked out, and I never told anyone. And I don't think I ever spoke to him again. He lived down the road and 2 houses down, but the memory is so clear. So I think this is a great story of there's something in our intuition brain, in that pattern recognition brain, that was, we don't know what she noticed. Maybe it was how he was standing. Maybe it was his facial expression in that moment. We don't know what it was that changed her sense of him from, oh, my neighbor who I see all the time, to, this kid is going to do me harm and I must get out of it. Now we know that her intuition is correct because he sort of pushed back when she said, if you don't let me out, I'll smash the window. You know, if he had no ill intentions and she said, if you don't let me out, I'll smash through the window, he could have just said, oh, okay, like go if you want to. But we know, we begin to see that her intuitions were correct because of the way he responded. And that was a really, a lightning impulse. It's a feeling that we get. And Gavin de Becker talks about this all the time. The gift of fear is that it comes upon us, it seizes us, it grabs us just as much as the heat of a hot pan grabs us and we recoil. And he also differentiates intuition, and the gift of fear from anxiety. Anxiety is, no, we don't want to live in anxiety. We don't want to live in constant fear. Living in fear is living in the future. Anxiety is about the future. I'm anxious about what could happen in the future. The true gift of fear seizes us in the moment. The true gift of fear is a response to the immediate environment. It's always in the immediate. So the way that our intuitions also and our instincts are functioning, they are also in the immediate. Our rationalizing brain, that's the worry brain. That's the brain that's in the future. Our intuition is right here in the present moment. Okay, so I want to also talk about. Okay, well, I'm gonna say, I think we'll get into it in a little bit, but I want to say that the dangers of the things that get in our way, the things that get in our way from listening to the intuition, is being in denial of our own situation, compartmentalizing the situation, or being judgmental of the situation. So sometimes, there's a story that Gavin de Becker has in here. It's like a woman, she's going into an elevator and she gets a bad feeling about the man who's standing next to her, but she doesn't want him to feel bad. And she starts rationalizing, he's dressed very nice. Of course, maybe he means her no harm. So she's denying, and she's rationalizing. So she's left the instinctual part of herself. She gets in the elevator and she finds herself in a very, very dangerous situation. So often, if we don't listen to the intuition, we are putting ourselves in direct danger. If we deny or dissociate, it can put us in danger. Now, there is maybe a time where maybe you are wrong about someone. Maybe you have a bad feeling about someone, but what does it cost you? Don't get in the elevator if you have a bad feeling. It doesn't cost you anything not to ride the elevator with a stranger who will never see you again. And oftentimes, if we deny the intuition, we can put ourselves in a lot more danger. Yeah, wanting to be kind can dissociate us, or not wanting to jump to confusion can dissociate us from our intuition. Um, yeah, I think it's good to practice. I think eyeing people down in public, I think that's a really good way to practice intuition, because if you're making direct eye contact with people, you are beginning to have ultimately an embodied practice of how to respond in the moment. And that is ultimately, that's really what I want us to be doing. I want everyone to be practicing their intuition, practicing listening to their instincts, so that we can be responsive in the moment. It's very important, especially if you're a parent. This is important because you need to teach it to your kids. And I mean, it's really especially important for anyone, but I am still going to make it especially special. And it's also really important if you are an abuse or rape survivor. It is very important to honor your intuition and your instincts because this can keep us safe. And often we are the ones who have been dissociated from it in the first place. So but it's a primary tool of safeguarding. So I want to go. So now, if you do have the book, you can read along. I want to go to page 11. There's a little quote that I want to read, and you guys get to see me. I'm gonna put on my readers because I'm getting to be an old lady who has readers. um, so. Uh, so he says that violence belongs to all of us. It touches all of us, and we all have something profound to contribute to the solution. We have often left this critical inquiry to people who tell us that violence cannot be predicted, that it's a game of odds, that anxiety is an unavoidable part of life. These wisdoms are not true. Throughout our lives, each of us will have to make important behavioral predictions on our own without experts. From the wide list of people who present themselves, we have to choose. We will have to make choices. Whether it's learned the hard way or the easy way, the truth is that your safety remains your own. It's not the responsibility of the police, the government, industry, the apartment building manager, or the security company. So I want to kind of point that our instincts are our own to protect. I mean, it's great if police officers are around. It's great if there's security around, but ultimately we have to respond. We have to be responsible. And my friend Erin always breaks this down. She calls responsibility response able, the ability to respond. We have to have the ability to respond to our instincts without, what do you call it, outsourcing it to an expert or another. We cannot outsource it. We have to be responsible for it. And Mary Jo, I want to talk to this comment really quickly. One, no, we do not have to be nice to strangers. But I like that you brought up strangers because there's a thing that parents used to do. I don't know if they still do it, but I used to be told when I was little, stranger danger. Now, the rule setting is antithetical to the intuition. So if you set a rule, you get this notion that the rule is making me safe. As long as I don't talk to strangers, I am safe. Stranger danger. Now, the fact of the matter is, if you tell that to your child, first of all, your child is going to see you talking to strangers all the time. You talk to people at the store, you talk to people in the parking lot, you talk to people who, I don't know, change your tire, whatever. You're going to rely on strangers all the time. So, first of all, your child is going to witness, even if you've told them stranger danger, they're going to witness somewhere in their psyche, they're going to see that that's not a very good rule and it's not true. So, they won't know when to follow that rule or not. But if you teach them to trust their own instincts, if you give them opportunities, say you give your child some change and you watch them, from not too far away, you say, hey, why don't you go buy an ice cream from that vendor? And you watch the child have the interaction. Then you ask the child afterwards, how did that feel? What did you think of that person? What did you notice? Or you have your child say, hey, go pick someone in this park scenario and ask them for the time. And then you say, why did you pick that person? Why not that person? Why did you think this was a good person to pick? In those instances, you're giving your child an opportunity to learn how to trust their own instincts and intuition, because the rule is not really a good rule, because you will have to trust strangers, or like telling women not to go into a dark alley. It's not really a great rule, because maybe in some instances the dark alley is going to be exactly where you need to run to stay safe. So it's important not to it's important not to do rule setting in a way that dissociates you from your instincts and intuition. Yes, let me see. Yeah, break down gender roles. I'll call them sex roles because women and girls were taught to bury and ignore our instincts. Yeah. And girls are usually much better at their instincts. And Gavin Becker talks about this in his book. He says, you know, the number one category of human beings who face predators, who face the most predation, are teen girls, and then the second being women. And teen girls face the most predation because they are both easy victims, much easier than women, and two, they are starting to explore their will and explore their autonomy. So they put themselves in dangerous situations. So they face the most sexual abuse. Yeah, I like that. You also debunk stranger danger. Yeah, and finding your boundaries. So boundaries are very, very important. Um, yes, I like this as well. Yeah, we can't we can see mental illness in a picture slash appearance. Yeah, we can't. Or I don't. I'm not sure what you're saying there. I think you're saying that. Well, I would say I don't know what exactly what you're trying to say there. Actually, we can see mental illness in a picture, an appearance in a split second, can't we? Oh yeah, can't we? Yeah, we can sense someone. We often get a sense of. We get a read on someone instantly. You get a read on someone. I remember I had a friend. She brought this guy that she wanted to date to brunch, and I immediately didn't like him. I did not like him at all. And they did date for a long time, and he was terrible. I mean, he was terrible the whole time, and finally she left him. But the whole time he was terrible. I also want to, okay, so now I want to quote, let's see. So he calls intuition our resource. It's, of course, it's often described as being, and I think this goes to what Laura you were saying. It's often described as being unreasonable or emotional or inexplicable. I have similar instances where I remember my dad like saying to my mom, like, oh, you're reading into things, you're reading too much into things. But like 99.999% of the time when my mom had a read on someone, it was accurate. Like almost all the time. I can think of maybe one time where it wasn't, but I can think of dozens and dozens of time where she would have an instinct or an intuition and my dad would downplay it and she would turn out to be right. And eventually when I was like, by the time I was like in my late teens, I was like, why are you questioning mom? She's always right. Like, she's going to be right in the end. So why are you questioning her anymore? So luckily I had a mom with a very good intuition. Thank you, Judy. Thank you for your compliment on my white glasses. So on page 15, he talks about violence having a purpose. And I think this is important because especially at these events. So I kind of am, of course, talking about this because of the live events we've been seeing. And I want to instill in all of us a way to be connecting with our intuitions and be connecting to our own ability to respond in the moment. And intuition is 1,000,000% a thing you can practice. It is a capacity. It can be built. We can be more responsive to our instincts and more responsive to our intuition. We can grow our ability to be in response to it. So, but I do like this part because he's saying violence is usually never random or senseless. It has a purpose. And we see this at these events. There is a reason why these men are treating us this way. They have a purpose. They are trying to do something. They are using it to control. Okay, they're using their violence to control our behavior. They're using it to silence and control. That is what they are doing. But what is great is because Gavin de Becker is saying that we don't actually have a duty to avoid it. We need to explore it. We need to anticipate it. So we can read the signals. Okay, we can have a responsibility to read the signals. So he's telling us not to be with comfortable myths, but to actually read the signals. And he says the truth is that, and this is on page 16 if you have the book. He says the truth is that every thought is preceded by a perception, every impulse is preceded by a thought, every action is preceded by an impulse. Man is not so private a being that his behavior is unseen or his patterns are undetectable. So this is true in most situations if we're paying attention. We can, yeah, why did he question her? Mary Jo. We can be, if we are paying close enough attention and being responsive enough to our own intuition. If we are checked in to our bodies, we can be in attention to this. And I want to tell a little story, and I think then maybe I have some other things. Let me see what is most important, because I'm being so long-winded, and maybe I'll come back to this book because I have like 10 more things that I wrote down, but I'm taking a long time to say each of them. But I want to repeat something that I've said before, but it's worth repeating. And I want to talk about the metaphor of the empty house. So, this is the metaphor of dissociation. It's a metaphor for a dissociation. So, if you think of an abandoned house, okay, say it's at the end of the block, it's abandoned, and everyone knows it's abandoned, and the people who left it, they put up a giant chain link, barbed wire fence around the property because no one lives there. They don't want anyone to break in. But despite the fact that there is a giant chain link fence around the abandoned property, people, kids throw their bottles through the windows, drug dealers break in, they hold their deals there, kids hold parties there, people let their dog take a dump on the lawn, they throw their trash in there, all kinds of things. So despite this fence, people do whatever they want. Now, of course, a few houses down, there's a lovely house, it has no fence, it's got a beautiful lawn. There are flowers in the garden. The lights are on. There's curtains in the window. There's some lovely dinner smells coming from the house. No one breaks in. No one screws with it. No one F's with the property. That is because it is fully occupied. And this is the difference. This is the distinction between a barrier and a boundary. Okay, having a boundary means being fully occupied, being in your body, being one with your intuition and your instincts. You are fully alert, you are paying attention. Okay, when I was in a dissociated state after my trauma, I put up all kinds of boundaries. I mean, sorry, I put up all kinds of barriers. The difference between a boundary and a barrier, I put up all kinds of barriers, right? I was defensive, I was cold, I was aloof, I did all kinds of things to put up barriers and walls. But the fact of the matter is, for some men who were in my life, they could see that I had no boundaries. I was just putting up barriers, but I was vulnerable because I was empty. I wasn't in myself. I wasn't in my body. I was dissociated from my body. So in fact, I did not know who I could trust because I could not trust myself. So if I didn't trust myself, I didn't know who else I could trust. I couldn't trust other people. If you can't trust yourself, you can't trust other people, and you don't know who is trustworthy. If I can't trust myself, I have to put up all kinds of barriers because I don't want anyone to break in. But if I am fully occupied, if I am fully in myself, if I am fully in my body, if I am fully occupied in my being, if I trust myself, if I trust my instincts, if I trust my intuition, then I can know who else to trust. I can make an accurate judgment about the world around me and those around me. I can feel safe as I walk through the world, because I am fully occupying myself and I have boundaries. Okay. Now, these kids, who are dissociated, they have to use barriers because they are dissociated from their bodies. They are not in their bodies. They are not in themselves. They've gone elsewhere, so they have to put up these barriers. And of course, they don't know who to trust because they cannot trust themselves. If we are teaching kids that you cannot rely on your own senses, you cannot rely on your own eyes and ears, ultimately you cannot have good boundaries. If you do not trust your own instincts and sense perceptions and intuitions, you cannot have good boundaries. You cannot have good boundaries in a dissociated space. You cannot have good bodily autonomy in a dissociated space. No matter how many barriers you put up, a barrier is not an effective way to confront the world. To have good, healthy boundaries, you need to be fully embodied and fully occupied. Hey, Kay Yang, how are you? I'm so glad you're here. I love it. Okay. So, and I also want to say, and Gavin DeBecker says this on 35, and I talked about it a little bit. So sometimes when we are listening to quote unquote experts, is because we are so one time we don't listen to ourselves is because we are listening to experts. So sometimes that's what happens. So, and he says this, one reason that we don't develop our own predictive skills is because we are listening to what experts tell us to do. Now, it's important to maybe take expert advice into consideration, but we cannot be giving our power away to experts. We have to be the primary expert on ourselves, on our own intuition, on our own boundaries. Okay, that we have to be, as I said, responsible, able to respond. We have to be responsible to ourselves. Hey, Ella, I'm so glad you're here. I love this. And then I also want to say, I want to go back to the things that hinder perception. And that is judgment. So when we get sometimes into that analytical place, I didn't underline what I wanted to underline here. Well, when we get into that judgment place, it can hinder our perception. Once we start making up excuses for why other people are doing what they're doing, it can get in the way. When animals respond, when the rabbit sees the fox, the rabbit doesn't sit around wondering, is it a good fox or is it a bad fox? Maybe this fox is a nice fox. Like, no, the rabbit responds, the rabbit runs, the rabbit does what it's meant to do. Same with the gazelle and the lion. It doesn't wait around. It doesn't start being in a thought pattern. And this is the story of what happened with Julie. This is what Julie Jamon did. I think you all know the story of Julie in Port Townsend, the 80-year-old woman who was banned from the locker room. What she did in that moment when she was coming out of the shower, she was in the shower, first of all, in the shower still, she hears a man's voice. Immediately she responds. She didn't think, like, oh, like, what kind of a man is this? Is this a man who says he's actually a lady? No, she didn't go through a mental analysis period. She responded to her instincts. And when she saw him touching little girls, she responded. She told him to leave. And this is the other thing. It is not our responsibility. Okay. When I've said the word responsibility many times here, and this is, again, it is the ability to respond. And this is the thing that also protects us, is our responsibility, our ability to respond in the moment keeps us safe. This is a tool for safeguarding. So it is not our job in these moments to mentally analyze. It is not my job to mentally analyze what are the psychological logical reasons that this man might be in my space. It's not my job to mentally analyze what are this man's fashion choices? Why did he make these fashion choices? This is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to my own safeguarding and the safeguarding of the kids that are around me. This is my responsibility. Um, I think I'm gonna pause here for a moment. So there's a lot of other things that I could say in this book, but I have been talking for almost an hour all by myself because I can be long-winded about this. Um, Yes, of course, I think yeah, I do definitely think, I do think that social media exacerbates this because social media is itself, dissociative, and it also the other thing about social media that the main thing about social media that is also dissociative, so it's dissociative because it's external validation seeking, we want those likes, and we come back for those likes, how many people I put up my picture, how many people liked it, external validation seeking, but it's also dissociative because it goes by so quickly. So we never really deepen and go down into a moment. Everything is scrolling by so fast, and then they partially put things on the screen, so you have to keep scrolling. If you look at the bottom of the screen, it's like half on words and you have to scroll up, so there's this thing where you're scrolling, so you're never situated, you're never grounded, you're in constant movement, and it's hindering our ability to focus, and that in itself is dissociative. So it's very important to do things like to stay grounded, to have moments where you are outside, to do yoga or meditation, or even just take a bath, to have moments where you are feeling what it feels like to be grounded in your body. All right, in one moment I'm going to take calls, but I want to observe a little game to you all. So this is a game you can play about your intuition. You can play it on your own or you can play it with kids. It's just a little observation game. And Gavin de Becker talks about this in his book, and he has a bunch of these kind of games in the protecting the gift. And this is a game, and it goes to that thing that I was talking about earlier with these rules. Like, we don't want to teach kids that there's a rule of stranger danger, because the rule itself dissociates us from our intuition. So one of the things that he asks, and I'm just repeating it here because I want to just give it to you, so you can think about it or offer it to the kids that you work with, or the kids that are your children. So he'll ask, and he asks it to women too, like, so he might say to a group of kids, there is a man who pulls over in his car and asks you to help him find his dog, but it gives you no fear. Why are you not afraid? Why are you not afraid? And he makes the kids fill in the blanks of the scenario. So then they say, well, I noticed that the guy pulled over to three different people. I noticed that the guy had a leash in his hand. I noticed that he had a picture of his dog. I notice all these things. And then he'll say, okay, now the same scenario. There's a guy in a car and he pulls over and asks for help with his dog. Why does it give you a bad feeling? And he'll have the kids fill in the blanks. Well, there were five different adults down the block, and he didn't stop at any of them. He just stopped at me and my friend. And he didn't have anything that looked dog-like. He didn't have a leash on him. He didn't have anything on them, and I found it very weird. Or he'll say, maybe to women, he would say, there's two men. They're approaching you on the street, but it doesn't give you a bad feeling. What's going on? And they might say, well, the men were talking to each other. It sounded like they were talking about a baseball game. They were very focused on their own conversation. It didn't bother me. And now he's like, there's two men on the street, they're walking down the street, it gives you a bad feeling, fill in the blanks. And they'll say like, oh, I noticed that they had their heads down, they weren't talking to each other, they were looking to the side as if to check out what was going on behind and around them. They were eyeing me and then avoiding eye contact. So as you play these games, you can see that your intuition reads these situations. You can read situations accurately. So it's not just necessarily the lone man on a street who's a problem. Your brain will fill in the blanks and see what the problem is. We have a very good, ultimately, most of us have a very good intuition, and we can deepen into it more. But as I said, I do want to hear what I would like to hear from you is moments where your intuition may have kept you safe. I would love to hear those stories. So I'm going to put up the call. Of course, I will, as I definitely can, I will I will chit chat until I get a phone call because I can. um, but I want to hear these stories because I think we all have stories where we were protected by our intuition. We were kept safe. Or conversely, we all have stories where we did not listen to our intuition and we were not safe. And Gavin de Becker talks about this as well. And that's one of the biggest lessons of my life. In the moment of my trauma, I was the man who raped me was a man that I trusted. He had been my friend for a long time, so I trusted him. Now, in this moment when we were alone together, I had not been alone together with him before. I got some very weird feelings when I was alone with him. I noted that he wasn't making direct eye contact. I had just shared with him. I had been published in this publication that I loved for the first time. I noticed that he didn't have a response to that. He wasn't excited about it. He just moved on in the conversation. He didn't pause there. There were a lot of things I noted that were really weird and shifty. But because I knew him, I thought we were friends. I was doing the thing that Gavin de Becker talks about. I was rationalizing. The moment and the situation, and not listening to the bad feeling that I was having, not listening to my intuition. Now, I could not have extrapolated that not listening to my intuition with this person would have led to the place that it led. I don't hold myself responsible for that, but it has ultimately been a lesson in really learning to trust myself. I have wanted to I have made sure that I have been in trust with myself. And a lot of the behavior that we see happening to kids, teaching them all of these things, teaching them to dissociate from their bodies, that they may not be a boy or a girl, teaching them that their bodies are identities, teaching them that they are compartmentalized, that they can buy and sell pieces of bodies and they're just interchangeable. And also, this is the worst one, teaching them to associate pain with authenticity. This is the absolute most criminal thing that we do to children right now. I know who is going to be the first one to call. I'm going to keep talking until it happens. But it is the absolute most criminal thing that we do, because our receptors, our sensory receptors, which are our eyes, our ears, but especially our pain receptors, those receptors are a guidance system to keep us safe. We recoil from the hot pan to keep us safe. So when we teach young girls that a breast binder is associated with their authenticity, that pain is literally associated with their authenticity, that's a dissociation. Now you cannot have good boundaries in that place. Once you are associating pain with pleasure, once your pain pleasure wires are crossed, that's a state of dissociation. That is not an embodied position from which you can have good boundaries, good bodily autonomy. Yeah. And enduring pain and abuse is seen as a virtue for women. I put up, I gave to Kay Yang today. There was a video. I can't remember her name. I have forgotten her name multiple times today when I've told this story. But there's a young singer who was on a runway, and she had her makeup done. Oops. And here we go. All right. Hello, welcome. How are
Call
you?
from Jacqueline
Oops.
Smith.
Oops.
To accept, press 1.
I
To
have to
send a
accept
voicemail,
one.
press 2.
One. Hey, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I guess I'm the first.
You are the first. Who is this?
And this is Jacqueline Smith, and I just found your channel last night, actually.
Oh, fantastic. Yay. Well, a pleasure. And now you're calling in. I love it.
Yeah. And I just jumped on, and I really liked what you were saying, so I thought I'd call.
Well, I love it. Well, did you have a story that you wanted to share about, I don't know, a time when you trusted your intuition or didn't listen to your intuition?
Yeah. So I was thinking about that, and the first story that came to mind was when I heard my intuition. I was in third grade. A man looking for his cat in the alley, and it didn't turn out well for me. But my intuition was screaming at me the whole time, even that young. And I didn't really receive any stranger danger conversations that was in the 70s. So I remember it so strongly run inside of me, and I didn't because I wanted to help him find his cat.
Yeah.
Then I am affiliated with a homeless mission, and there's a lot of mental illness and drug addiction.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of second guessing. Should I be having this conversation right now? Should I back up? Should I not be standing here alone? So I think that I try to listen to it more now. And I guess if I have walked away, I guess I don't know if I would have saved myself from something.
Yeah.
But I certainly have had situations, that I later find out that I should have,
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to just listen to. One thing I wanted to say is the reason why I found you is because my grandchildren are in the Tacoma school district. And I'm really feeling passionate about the things that you're saying. So that's how I found you. And I'm finding myself speaking with my granddaughter, kind of the stranger danger thing, because everything is so scary. It was much different than it used to be.
Yeah.
And so I'm just, don't look at anybody, don't talk to anybody, don't go to the bathroom by yourself, and maybe that is kind of not helping them exercise the look at the signs around you. And I don't know what I wanted to ask you about that.
I think that we can have, there's a way to do both. So there's a way to say, you need to have a healthy fear of other people. You have to have a healthy, maybe not fear, healthy wariness of others. But the most important thing is that you need to trust yourself. So shoot, hold on. I have to block. Judy, are you in the chat? Can you block this person? Ugh. I have to block this person from my channel.
Someone that doesn't agree, I guess.
Yeah, I need to report them. They're putting in gross messages in my chat. Okay, I got them out. Okay, good. Okay, remove and remove and remove. Okay. And there we go. Okay, sorry about that. Uh,
Yeah, all right.
so there's a way to do both, because you can have your grandchildren practice listening to themselves and just keep reiterating that it is important to trust yourself. Now, and I don't know if you've got into my content yet. This is why I always bring up the story of Little Red Riding Hood, because this is
Mm,
a story of a young girl who is learning to listen to her instincts, where the charming stranger says that he is her grandmother, and she has to pay attention. She has to say, what big eyes you have, what big ears you have. She notices that there is a
mm,
cognitive dissonance between what is in front of her and what he is telling her, and this is a very important tool. Now, you can, I would do as much as possible, work with them, like the kind of scenarios that I gave you, like, there's a guy looking for his cat and you don't trust him. Why don't you trust him?
right.
He says he has a cat. Why aren't you trusting him? And let the kids fill in the blanks, and then give them the same scenario. There's a guy looking for a cat and you do trust him. Why do you trust him? So get them to start paying attention, play games, and get them to start paying attention to their intuition and their instincts. And then the same thing, like if you are with them at a park or at a store, say, hey, why don't you go up and ask someone, do they have this in another size? Or why don't you go up and ask someone, what is the time? You need to find out what the time is, and give them little tasks within your viewing. Okay, and say,
Hmm.
why did you pick that person and not that person? What did you think about that
Oh,
person? So you're getting them to practice who they can go to and who they can trust in the moment. Now, you can do the same thing with your own interactions. Like if they are with you when you are having an interaction at the store, like say we're just buying groceries, we're having an interaction, just ask them, like, hey, what did you think of that teller? Like, well, I thought they were kind of gruff and mean. Oh, they seemed really friendly and nice. Just, oh, why did you think that? Well, I noticed that they said that they liked your sweater, or I noticed that you said, I noticed that they did this. So just get them to start practicing this, and you don't even have to practice it with making them do it. Like, you can just sit there and say, hey, if you had to choose someone from this park to ask for the time, who would you pick and why? Or
oh, yeah, that's a good idea.
who would you not pick? Who would you definitely not pick? Why would you not pick that guy? Well, he looks real shady. He does not look clean. He's looking from side to side. I saw him like do such and such. Get them to fill in the blanks of the story, because this is getting them to do a practice in which they are learning to trust themselves. They are learning to trust their own read on things. And the more that you can ground them in reality, because this cult is trying to dissociate
Mm,
them, and
hmm.
you could even start asking them things about this. I don't how old are they?
My granddaughter's 8 and my grandson is 14.
Because I would start grounding them in the fact that men are men and women are women. Like,
Right. Oh, yeah, I have.
like, how does it make you feel when, when so and so, tells you that he's a woman? I don't like it. What do you think? What do you think about it? Why do they
Yeah.
tell us that we have to be nice? Do you think that's nice? Do you think it's nice to lie to people? Do you think lying is nice? Like, just start asking questions and get them to continue. You're getting them to continually practice what it is to have healthy bodily autonomy, and just repeat
Hmm.
these things, like and you can tell them, I trust you, I trust your read on things. That's exactly who I would pick. If I had to ask someone for the time, we would have picked the same person. That's exactly who I would have picked. Or like, oh, I agree with you, I never would have picked that person either, and I wouldn't have picked them because of this reason. And get them to sort of see that it's very important, and just keep underlying it. It's very important to trust your own eyes and ears. Even if
But,
people tell
yeah.
you they are such and such, you have to trust yourself.
Yeah, what I'm finding um, is they're kind of using the other kids, I mean, as you know, to kind of as peer support to pull one another into these groups that are, you know, proclaimed lesbians at 8 years old. And kind of, I mean, back when I was a kid, I mean, there was punk rock, there was skaters, you know, and this is kind of the new, you know, group. So I'm finding that there is talk. Um, I sat next to her during the Zoom classes, and my grandson has told me um, some of the things, some of the classes that he's stood up and walked out of. Um, but it's really a peer pressure um, thing that they're doing. It's very ingenious, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
they're using one another to. So there's almost like a she's almost even cut off with me because I've made, you know, my opinions be known on this, and my poor little baby is like just um, torn on who to listen to because she's there 8 hours a day,
Yeah.
and you know, it's just I'm sorry, I'm getting teary because I mean
Yeah.
we're so close, and this is just really getting into family relationships
Yeah.
and
Well,
breaking them apart, you know?
if they notice, if they notice that you, um, are having, if they notice that you're having emotions, um,
Mm-hmm.
you can use all of these things can be opportunities. You can draw them in, like, why do you think this makes grandma so upset? And let them fill in the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
And then they, maybe they'll say, maybe they'll get it right, or maybe they'll get it wrong. Maybe they'll say, it upsets you because you're a bigot. That's what my teacher thinks. No, it doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a bigot. I don't hate your teacher. I don't like it
Mm-hmm.
because he's lying to you, and I want you to trust your own eyes and ears on what you see. Or, like, that's why it makes me angry, because I don't like it when anyone lies to me, and I don't like it when anyone lies to you. And, like, let use these opportunities as a way to, like, draw out questions. um
Mm-hmm.
and, like, or, and you can understand, yeah, I want to be kind to my teacher. I like my teacher. I like your teacher too. I want to be kind to your teacher too, but I don't think it's kind to lie. Would you like it if I lied to you? What if I told you we were going to ice cream, and then we didn't go, and I told you it was a lie? Like, I think there's a way that you can, don't disparage, don't be discouraged. These are, if you are close with these children, you have lots of opportunities, and you can make it playful, and read some books. Find some of these
Mm-hmm.
older books, like, read the Hans Christian, or, sorry, not the Grimm's brothers version of Little Red Riding Hood, and ask, like, what do you think of that? Who does that wolf remind you of? Does it remind you of anyone you
Mm-hmm.
know? um get into having a question and answer period. And because, of course, these kids want to be kind, and even that in itself, like, you can ask them what the best thing to be is. What do you think is the best? Do you think it's the best to be truthful? Do you think it's the best to be kind? Do you think it's the best to be non-judgmental? Like, what do you think the best, like, value is, or quality, character trait is? What's the best character trait? And let them fill in the blank. Like, well, I think the best character trait is to be kind. Well, do you think being kind is better than, being honest? Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
being honest is a really good character trait, and that's one of the character traits I try to be. You can just keep doing, asking questions will help you open and open and open the conversation. And the more they feel like you are curious and they can be curious with you, I think that will be fortifying for you both. And the more you can, use it as an opportunity to deepen your relationship with them, I think
Mm-hmm.
also the better foundation they will have no matter what. And as they get into these conversations in a deeper way, as they get older and go through puberty, it will be really important to have a foundational relationship with you where they know that they can have an open conversation with you and question you, and that you're not going to reject them for having disagreements or
Right.
questions.
Right. Yeah. And I, covertly, told her that, that I don't care what she does. My love for her would never be any different. I gave her some examples of what that looks like. And
Yeah.
yeah, but she numbs the word. She just won't talk about it. And yeah, so I don't know what that is. I don't know. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep talking.
Yeah.
They come back around.
Do keep talking. Keep coming to my talks and conversations, because I am creating a community here where we can keep talking about this, and we can
Yeah.
come to each other with these questions and conversations. Also, Partners for Ethical Care is a great resource for parents. It's a great place to go to find information on this topic, and
Okay.
it's a great place to go. They do have support networks as well, for parents and guardians, so they are a wonderful resource to have.
Right on. Well, thank you so much. And I watched the board meetings where these brave women got up and spoke. And yeah, I just really appreciate it. And
Thank
I
you
guess
so much.
somebody got hurt. And
Yeah.
even, yeah. So
Well,
wow.
if
I mean,
you want, I think a good source for you also is my danger of gender indoctrination for kids video. I mean, it's the danger that's happening to kids. It's not truly a video for kids, it's for adults.
right.
But that might be a good resource for you. And I know, as I said, Partners for Ethical Care. But thank you so much, Jacqueline. And I really appreciate you getting invested after that violence in Tacoma. I wish that those students had resources like you, because I wish those students could have used that as an opportunity for some civil discourse and healthy debate. It's very sad to see. It's very sad to see how it's gone for them.
Right. I think that they're really believing that they're fighting an injustice, and they're getting behind what they're thinking is mistreatment of the underdog, and they're really believing that. So I don't know if we can do better with explaining that we love them. We love the person behind, struggling with gender dysphoria, and we want to be there in love and not attack. I guess. I hate the movement behind this and sucking our kids into this, because I think it is on purpose.
Well, it is,
but they're just a victim of it. I think
this is a money-making industry, and we all love kids who are sex stereotype non-conforming. We welcome kids to be as non-conforming as they wish to these stereotypes. It's these stereotypes, these narrow, regressive stereotypes are the problem, and kids should be taught to question and critique the narrow and regressive stereotypes that are being projected on them, rather than 413. You're gonna just call back in like a minute or two. we're going to have to teach these kids to reject and critique the stereotypes rather than rejecting their own bodies.
Right, right.
Yeah. All right.
Well, nice to meet you. Thank you so
Jacqueline.
much. I'll be watching more of your videos tonight.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. 413 or whoever that was, you can call back, or Abel, if you want to call, there's the phone number. So Abel, if you want to call in, you can. I'm going to finish telling that story really quickly. So the story was about, oh shoot, I can't remember the woman's name again. Shoot, Kay Yang, you put it up there somewhere. The point is the celebrity superstar, she got her makeup done on the runway with a busted face look. So she put on her face a black eye, a broken lip, and like a scratched up face. And this was her runway look. So my point was that culture is trying to tell us that to fetishize violence against women, that it was this sexy look that she went down the red carpet with. I mean, this is insanity. This is messed up. I mean, you know, this is fetishizing and glamorizing the abuse of women, which is horrible. All right, here we go. Shoot. Okay.
Abel Garcia.
Hey, Abel.
To accept, press 1. To send a voicemail.
Hey, Abel, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good, so good. Can everyone hear, by the way? Can everyone hear, by the way? Okay, anyway. Can everyone hear
let
Abel?
Me try talking. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
If you can hear, okay, good. I answered you in a different way, so I hope that everyone can hear. Okay, no one is saying they can't hear, so I think it's fine. How are you today?
Good. I just finished dinner.
Okay,
now
good.
I want to go back to sleep.
Good. Oh, good. So are you sharing with us a story of intuition, or what are you sharing with us?
Oh no, I just wanted to say hi.
Oh. You're just saying hi.
And that laughter was worth it.
Oh, good. Well, good. I know that I'll ask you this then instead. I know you've had some very exciting things happening in your life and in your world. And for those of you who don't know, Abel Garcia is an independent journalist and activist. He is also a detransitioned man who is speaking out on the issue of medicalizing children. He has become a spokesperson in many ways, an advocate for children, and he has his own channel and his own YouTube and does a lot of great work there. But Abel, why don't you tell us what's going on in your life right now?
There's a lot I sadly cannot say, but I will say later this week, I'm going to have to double check when, but I'd recommend everyone watching or keeping an eye out for Front Lines by Joe Hernandez, as I was interviewed by him last week. If you don't know who that is, or if that name sounds familiar, he just interviewed Chloe Cole last week.
Great.
Let's see. I followed his work for a while, and I can say he is someone that I would keep an eye on because he is an actual journalist, unlike me. I'm just a part-time journalist. So let me see. What else can I say? Because there's a lot of things that I'm.
Well, why don't since I'm going to ask you one more thing. So since our talk here today is about instincts and intuition, do you feel a difference for yourself? Does that feel different for you from the time that you were in sort of your transition phase to now? Like, do you feel, I don't know, a more sense of embodied presence, or a deepening with your own intuition or instinct since you have walked away from that ideology?
Everything's a bit more different. I will say that since I've left that lifestyle. I will say I've grown a lot as a person, and I can't believe I was very immature and dumb enough to do what I did back then. I will say that.
Oh, well, I don't judge you, friend. It the thing is, I understand why you may have self-judgment, but the fact of the matter is, there is a massive industry glamorizing that ideology and glamorizing it as not just a glamorous life, but also as a way to solve whatever pain you're feeling. So I have a deep understanding of why anyone might go down that path, and I think it's really courageous and strong of you, to be able to walk away and to have saved yourself from that.
Well, I'm hoping to help people. That's how I'm trying to help myself.
You are helping people. You are absolutely helping people. I really appreciate your courage in speaking out and your willingness to put yourself in the line of fire. Abel Garcia, if people don't know, was recently seen speaking out at the Our Duty action against the Pediatric Association in Anaheim, the conference that happened there. And Abel and a number of other detransitioners were speaking there. Kay Yang is saying it takes a lot of courage to detrans. So I think that's really true. And there's so much support for you in the comments. And we all just appreciate you. And anyone who is not already should follow Abel on Twitter. Abel, can you remind me of your @
Official Abel G, the O, the A, and the G are all capitalized.
Okay.
Just because I feel like you can't find me any other way.
All right.
Like, I check myself, but I think I'll automatically show up on myself. Unless Twitter chat about me. But I don't think that's possible anymore because Elon bought it.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Okay, I'm gonna put up your @
I've been having too much fun on there.
Exactly.
Or if you want, let me put it on. I'll put it in chat right now.
Okay, good.
So people can have it after you beat me. Never mind.
All right, I beat you to it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
but yeah, I've been having too much fun on Twitter since Elon bought it.
Yeah, I know. Same. I think we all are. I think we all are.
A lot of people have been very offended by my comments, which is good.
Which is good. Well, awesome. Well,
I will say I am also on Instagram for those wondering. It's the same tag.
Okay, same tag at Instagram. Fantastic.
I'm watching Tab. Yeah, I'm watching chat right now.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Yay. Well, Abel, thank you so much for calling in. I'm sure I'll talk to you here or in spaces soon. I just so appreciate you.
All right, I'll let you go for the next person. Now, before I let you go, did I send you those photos from Austin? I can't remember.
Yes, the picture of you and Kelly Jean from Kelly J.
Posey Parker.
Yeah, Posey Parker. I saw those were so great.
Yeah, that was, I can't believe I blinked. I'm kind of upset, but I blame my security for taking this week's time on getting ready.
Aw. Well, I'm really glad you got to meet her.
Yeah, as soon as I realized I got late, I called Gab, who was standing behind me, and I asked her about Posey, and she introduced me to her. I guess she's doing a documentary because after I got to meet her, a gentleman with a camera asked if I wanted to be if I want to have a conversation. It was for someone later told me it was for a documentary.
I'm so glad. I'm glad you're going to make it in there. You're amazing.
I try to keep it short. I didn't want to take too much time.
Well, I'm really glad. I think it's perfect. They should capture your story. So I love that.
hopefully, if Kelly ever comes back to the U.S., I can speak with her for a bit longer than 5 minutes.
Well, you'll have to, when she gets back to the UK, you'll have to call her and do an interview with her.
Do you or anyone know her closer that I could get that arranged? Because I'd love to talk to her.
Yeah, DM me. I'll do my best. I can't make promises, but I could do my best. I have a way.
I only want your best. I don't expect miracles.
Okay, good. Good. All right, Abel. Yay. Well, I'll talk to you.
Well, I've taken a little too long.
No, you're perfect.
I'll let the next person have it.
All right. Oh, perfect.
Bye,
I'll talk to you soon.
I'll see you in chat, I guess.
I'll see you in chats. Okay, cool. Bye. All right. Yes. So yeah, and I saw that Kay Yang put up who that was. And I saw there's another question about, yeah. So Turf, you can call in. If you feel like you can call in about the speaker's corner. Oh, here we go. Okay. Hello, welcome. You're on with Amy, and you can say your name or not say your name as you choose.
Sure, my name's Laura.
Hey, Laura, how are you today?
Good. This is perfect timing. I was about to lose juice on my recorder on my computer. Yes, I felt. First of all, I love that you're opening this space for talking about, intuition and feelings. Watching the. First of all, I was watching your Washington outside of the YMCA when people were allowed to crowd you guys and get right up against you. And today, watching the Chicago, seeing the women there be pressed up against and people allowing these strangers who want to shut them down to press right up against you, it triggered a very powerful memory in me. This is 30 years ago. I was out with friends after work, and we went to a movie, and then after a movie, we went to a restaurant to get something to eat and have a few drinks. And so the restaurant was a restaurant with a bar attached. It wasn't a dive bar or anything. There were 6 of us women. We went in, the restaurant was full, so we took the corner booth in the bar. The bar was mostly empty. We were sitting in the corner, just having fun amongst ourselves, when all of a sudden, so we're like women in our 20s and mid-20s, and all of a sudden, 2 men, one of our number got up to go to the bathroom, and 2 men came up, youngish men came, and since we were kind of in a corner booth where you kind of scoot around a table, one man slid in next to me because it was the woman right next to me who got to go to the bathroom, and another man slid in the other way. So we had 2 men now end capping the rest of us, the other 5 of us in this table. And they came, they had had a few drinks, and I immediately asked them to leave, and they didn't leave. My friend came back, and I said, don't sit down, they're leaving. They didn't leave. My friend sat down on the opposite side. So now we got these men who inserted themselves in our conversation. I had all I could do not to grab a fork. And I was like, get away, get up. I want to get out, get up. I'm just looking right at me, right next to me. And he'd be like, well, go ahead, talk to your friend. I said, I can't, your head's in the way. Get out. So I got out. I asked the 2 men to leave. Now, granted, there's 5 other women there, my friends from work, and they don't leave. I went to the bar. The bartender was a man, and at the bar, there were maybe 4 men and maybe 1 woman. And I'm like, will somebody help us please get these 2 men to leave us alone? We don't want their attention. We just came here to get dinner and drinks. Just dumb stares. I went to look for the manager in the restaurant. And while I was waiting for the manager of the restaurant to come, I went to my friends around the table. And I said, I'm one of the drivers. I'm taking 3 of you home and I'm leaving. I said, so if any of you who rode with me want to come back with me, I said, I'm leaving now. And that kind of like, quote unquote, like the men spoiled the party, but I just ended it.
Yeah.
And as we were walking out, the manager was finally coming over. And I said, look, we are 6 people who hadn't even been served dinner yet, who might have had a couple of drinks. And I said, you just lost this sale for the night and I will never be back. I said, because 2 men are there forcing themselves on us. And I asked for help and there was nobody in this building who was helping us. And now we're leaving. And I left. And it's funny how today I was triggered. One, because the men physically had us trapped and I felt claustrophobic and pressed up against him. And the idea that the larger community, the other men at the bar who seemed decent, the bartender, it's like I was a foreigner and I was in a controlled voice. You know, I had maybe intensity in my voice. I was saying, could somebody please ask these men to leave? Nobody made a move. It was like I was mentioning something that they had never heard of. And it's something that obviously has stayed with me because these speakers' corners where you guys are being pressed upon and nobody, I mean, who doesn't have the common decency to say, make these people push back? They're a danger. They're terrifying, these women. You're very brave, but, you know, there's got to be a lot of fear there. And I was like, the idea that the larger community is just not stepping up. And I don't know what I feel more upset about. It's like that day in that bar. I think partially what upset me the most is I was there with 5 other women and it was like they all were silent and shut down.
Yeah.
And I have experienced this a lot. And I've thought about it over the years and I'm like, these are all women and similar things have happened in similar times. And when I spoke about it, it's like, you know, just saying, hey, that really bugged me. What he did there was wrong. And there's like silence from the other women. And sometimes there's even pushback like against me, like don't make a big deal about it. And I think there really is just so much buried trauma out there amongst women. And the girls and the women, you know, I try not to come down on these girls and women that are on the other side because I'm saying they're full of such trauma and they just think this is probably the best way they think to survive, to cope. But I found it very triggering, the complete betrayal of decency when it comes to just women's needs and women in danger. And I am so grateful, you know, because I saw what was coming. I'm like, those men thought we were just like a challenge or objects or some fun. It wasn't the idea that we even wanted their attention. They were going to give it to us. And I thought, and as I sat there, you know, I'm like, I just wanted up instantly because I'm kind of claustrophobic. And I just thought, I can see what's going to happen. They're going to stay. They're going to hope we get drunk. They're going to hope they can convince a couple of us to go with them. And I do feel like, you know, I took charge and I feel like I saved all 6 of us. But what stayed with me was the complete betrayal, how I was like a foreigner speaking a foreign language, and apparently nobody understood what my problem was.
They knew, I mean, obviously they knew what the problem was, but they felt that you were not doing, you were breaking some sort of an unwritten social code that these men should be entitled to do this, and that the fact that you were speaking was socially uncomfortable for the others. But this is the problem. You know, women are actually scared, and other people are just a bit socially uncomfortable with the scenario. And I mean, I think that that restaurant situation is not uncommon. I've definitely had similar situations in public, especially at that age, especially in my 20s. And you know, I actually have stepped in before, at this age in my 40s, for girls in their 20s, because I've seen those kind of situations, and an adult woman can say, no, get out of here. in a way that a 20-year-old is just, undervalued and ignored. But I really appreciate your observations, because that the situation in Port Townsend, um, so disturbing. The situation. I mean, and I knew those people too. I knew those people.
Yeah.
I knew those are
Mhm.
former friends of mine. I knew them. I mean, it was just insane to me. It was insane. And the situation in Tacoma, and they transgress. They could have stayed away. They could have, everyone who, some people have been calling them children. They were students. They were not kids. They were students. They were,
Right.
some of these boys, 16, 17, 18, probably even 19-year-old boys. I mean, they were big
They know
kids.
exactly what they're doing. Yeah.
They're not children. They're big kids. And
Yeah.
they could have stayed away. The now all of these cries of the parents and the teachers who were like, oh, the kids were unsafe. Well, the kids could have stayed. They were up at the top of the stairs before. They could have stayed up there. They could have shouted their insults from up there, but they absolutely surrounded and aggressed and transgressed into our space, into our boundaries. They followed us to our cars. They were the aggressors.
Yeah.
This is very clear. The footage is very clear. Candace Mercer is in the chat. I mean, I have all kinds of footage on the live stream, but she has really great footage of the crowd. And they were the transgressors the entire time. They never stopped aggressing. They never stopped pushing, and we were falling back as they were pushing. And I think this,
But I do.
go on. Sorry.
Well, but I do think that's the answer, kind of like, like what you're doing with building community and giving each other strength, because of that incident that happened so long ago. This was just a couple months ago, and it was early in the morning, and I was in this convenience store getting coffee, and I noticed the woman behind the counter, probably in her early 20s, and two young men. And it's one of those counters where there's only one way out. Yeah. One man was standing in front of the register looking at her, and his buddy was standing right by the counter, which was her only means of escape. And I'm the only other person in the store. So I get my coffee and I turn, and I'm like, oh, I better go busy myself by the chips, because they were over there like chatting her up. And not a loss. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning, and they're buying little alcohol shooters on their way to work. So I'm like, yeah, these are not a couple of good guys. And no. And I just stood back, and I just was staring at the chips and the corn nuts until they were ready to leave. And then I got in line. I kind of stood. I'm like, oh, they're not paying attention. So I kind of stood within like 3 feet behind the back of them, and I just kind of looked. And I looked at the man who was the quiet one, not the one trying to chat up this woman, but his friend. And I just looked right at him. And the girl looked at me, and I'm like, don't worry about me. I'll wait until these fellas are finished. And very quickly, the man who was silent, but by her exit, told his buddy, come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. And they left. And I just stood there. I bought my coffee and stood there till they drove away. And I went and I said, I take it you didn't know these guys. And she goes, no, of course not. She goes, thank you for staying.
Yeah.
Because she was doing what women do. You try to treat it like it's no big deal. And she was kind of like laughing it off. But I mean, she's sending out alarm and oh my God, messages. But giggling, and we all have done it, where you're kind of giggling, you're a little evasive, and you're not giving them any information, but you're not trying to antagonize them either. That dance we do.
Well, you're still at work. You're at your job,
Yeah. Will she get fired? Will this man will these two men be in there tomorrow?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I do think, and I felt real good about that, that I do feel like the answer is, women supporting women, but how to address these gatherings where they're allowed to press right up against us and we're not allowed to speak. I just keep thinking of possibly we can't do sound. Possibly we just get enough of us to just do silent marches,
Yeah.
like the civil rights
Yeah.
used to do.
Yeah.
I think of the I am a man, pictures that show, or just like, I'm a man, I am a man. And you have, the black men in Memphis or whatever, just walking silently in a line. Now, I know that has its own things, because what if a group split the line up and try to corner just a couple of women? And I don't know. There has to be a way to fight this besides addressing directly, women, girls, we know you're afraid. We know what you're up against.
Yeah. Well, I think, I love what you're offering here, Laura, because I think Kay Yang and I have been discussing some more theatrical tactics that could be very visually impressive. They could speak very loud visually and not require sound, because I think we can still speak our message without sound. So we are strategizing on a lot of different ways. And I love the idea of a parade. I love the idea of things that are artistic and theatrical. And I think we must continue to explore these. And I also love your story because I love the older woman helping the younger woman. I think that is, we need that as well. And we need to teach us having boundaries and standing up for one another teaches younger women how to do this. I had this job where I was a bartender a few years ago. And there was a young woman. She was just 18. She had just turned 18. And this guy who was bartending with me in his 40s was hitting on her. Basically, she was learning to drive. He was saying he could teach her to drive. He was saying, he was asking her for hugs. He was saying how cool she was. Maybe they could go. He asked her what she liked. She was into like art. He was like, maybe we could go to a museum together. And she finally came to me. It was a small enough bar that was only ever one bartender, but she came to me on a night when I was working and was like, I feel very uncomfortable. And I was like, yeah, that's very weird. And that's not good behavior. And I understand why you're uncomfortable. And I will speak to the boss for you. You don't have to do it. I will tell your story for you. And I said, you should be uncomfortable. That's very weird. I said, he's in his 40s. So was I at the time. And I said, I would not try to befriend you. You are 18. You are not my friend. You are not a peer to me. I said, if we had a relationship, it would be like, you would be like my little mentee. I was like, I think you're a great girl. I love you. I have a lot of fun when we work together, but I would never invite you to hang out because I have friends who are on my own level. You are not on that level for me. And so, but I told her also in the moment, I said, someday you are going to be in your 40s and there's going to be an 18-year-old who is looking to you to stand up for her. And I'm going to stand up for you today. And you're going to stand up for some girl, 20 years from now. So,
right. Yeah.
This is the legacy of the adult woman standing up and having boundaries. And that's the thing about most of us who are on the ground, who are doing this boots on the ground work. There's a handful of this, like, a few 20 somethings, but most of us are in our 40s or older. These women, we are in our 40s, in our 50s, in our 60s, in our 70s. We are grown ass adult women standing our ground and saying no. And this is our role. Our role is to hold these boundaries, hold the line. It's impressive that you could do it in your 20s. I mean, that's just incredible.
Well, like you said, that's because, a lot of us in this organization, we're canaries in the coal mine where we recognize this. I mean, in my case, I had a physically abusive father. So I was primed to male violence. So it's like, that's why I was alert in my 20s, because, I recognized all the signs. It wasn't any particular bravery in my part, just life experience.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like all the women in the movement who stand up and talk, and they're all like, I would have been targeted. I would have been targeted. I was a tomboy, It's like I would have. And it's just kind of like, we know the dangers. We've been down this path. We've survived, But I think another thing is, once again, I think part of it is just the changing cultures. Culture's changing so rapidly. It used to be that the older women taught the younger women because, you know, we were all at home and we taught, you know, the generations of women were together and the generations were men together. And I just think that society's been changing so much that we're separated by age. And I think anything we can do to reconnect, to create a new social structure or practice that brings older women and younger women together, that brings older men and younger men together. I feel like things are changing so much. There are no social structures anymore that work. And I think the more we can do to bring older women to mentor younger women, I think the better off we're all going to be.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
So I think what you guys are doing are great. And I will financially support it and physically support it as much as I can. But like I said, I cannot, my nearest city is New York. And I thought about going and I'm like, you're 5'2", you just hurt your shoulder. You got arthritic knees. You know, it's like,
all right,
you're claustrophobic. This is not the way.
Okay.
I cannot be there, but
Okay.
other ways I can support.
Okay. Well, we appreciate your support. And I am going to be in New York. So if you decide to come, first of all, you can stand far away. I mean, New York City is a city, so no one will necessarily think you are one of us if you stand away from us. So
I will wear, believe me, I'll wear, they'll know I'm one of you if I go, definitely. Yeah.
All right. But we must do this. This is true, ladies. We must take care of ourselves. So, Laura, I'm going to let you go so I can take this. This is an Australia call. Thank you so much.
All right. Sure. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye. Hello. Welcome. You're on the air with Amy. You can say your name or not.
Amy. This is Kelly and Chaos from Australia. I run a little channel called Stone the Crone over here.
Oh, I love it. Stone the Crow. Welcome. How are you?
I'm so excited to be speaking.
Oh, I love you so much. I love this. This is so great. I can't believe you're calling from Australia. What is your so early for you?
It's midday for me here. I'm on my lunch. So but look, Amy, I just want to say the stuff you're doing on intuition, the stuff you're doing on the sacred female and the archetypes, that's what I'm about. That's what it's just a missing piece for me.
I agree. I am in absolute agreement with you. You know, this is, to me, I mean, I could get a little more woo, but this is our female power. It's our superpower. This intuition piece, this instinct piece, this is the feminine capacity, not feminine like pink and makeup and high heels, but the divine feminine power. I am so with you.
I always explain it like this, yeah? Because you know your Jacqueline and Boaz, you're two pillars. We stand so that we balance both. I draw from that because I'm not the mother. And I draw from, my husband draws from it, so that he's got the Spartan god that pulls the baby out and puts it on the rock and, huzzah, he's a champion. That we both balance that together so that I can be fierce and he can be nurturing.
Yeah. I so agree with you. Oh my goodness. It's so great to hear your voice. And I love having you in my chat so much. And is your channel is Stone the Crow, correct?
Yes. So it's been going for about 10 months now. I've only got a few subscribers. I don't really normally talk about it. I'm sort of one of those, if you find me, kind of thing. But I'm just at the cat in the bag. I was that ringer that was annoying you the other day too, by the way. I do apologize.
Not at all. Not at all. I really wanted to take your call, but I was so tired. It was so tired at the end of a long day. I hate not taking calls, but I also it's the thing about boundaries. I just I had to put a stop and a little boundary on that day and claim the rest of the day. I really needed to stand up is the main thing. I needed to stand up and walk around, and I did not want to be sitting for any longer. But I'm so sorry. I'm sorry I missed your call, but I'm so glad you're calling now. This is so great because now we do have the opportunity to talk about this intuition piece and this feminine piece, and you know, this is a capacity that we all have. You know, to me, I really. I mean, I can be definitely a little woo, but really when I'm talking about this, I am talking about something very practical. You know,
Yes.
I'm not talking about it in the spiritual sense, although I feel it in a spiritual sense, but I am actually talking about it in a very practical, you know, just like we weight lift to be strong in our muscles, we flex our intuition to be strong in our safeguarding, to be resilient in ourselves, internally resilient, emotionally resilient, psychologically resilient.
It's the whole package. So I sort of like you think, you feel, you act.
Yep.
All three.
Yep.
All three. My head, my heart, my gut.
Yes.
But my gut and my heart think.
Yes.
And my head assesses that in moments, in real time. You know, like firing on all cylinders at once. And I think one of my favorite movies for that analogy is The Wizard of Oz. You see Dorothy with the Tin Man and then the Scarecrow, and they dance in sync. That is her. She is the fool of the tarot card, coming into that realization of manifesting, but everything in power. And that's the thing, is the action. The part, I'm sorry, but the lion, when he gets the royal robes, because without that action, there is no manifestation.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. That movie is just so packed with symbolism and insights and wisdom, and of course the books that they were inspired by as well. There's a lot in there, and there's I mean there's that those books have a lot of they are really books about revolution on the at the root, showing us how to fight against power, and that man behind the curtain, that Wizard of Oz, who seems so so enticing, so glamorous, so wise. These are the experts that we're facing right now. These are the big pharma and the big tech, and you know, these are the men behind the curtains that we're facing. We're like Dorothy, and our home, to me, that home is our intuition. We are at home in our bodies, in our embodiment, in ourselves.
Yes, exactly. I tell you, when you mentioned Little Red Riding Hood, and I'm over here in Queensland, Australia. I'm like, that right there.
I love it so much. I love it so much. Oh my gosh, I just want to travel. I want to like travel and meet everyone where everyone lives. It's so good. It's really so sweet. There is such a sweetness. You know, it's funny because we're doing these live streams of all of these speakers corners events, and I get really enraged at the opposition that we're facing, but there is just such a sweetness. There is such a sweetness in connecting with other women and feeling solidarity from all different parts of the globe, and there's such a kindredness, and I really feel this power, you know, this, it comes back to me that we are of one lineage, you know, somewhere we are connected, somewhere from mother to daughter to mother to daughter to mother to daughter, that goes back and back and back and back. You know, we are sisters, we are cousins, we are connected to that original mother somehow. We are sisters here in this fight
Absolutely.
together.
Yeah, I totally agree. So last night here, so I'm lunchtime now on Monday, Tuesday, sorry, but so it's the 1st November here now, so I'm quite a bit ahead in time. So midnight last night, I got my turfing cauldron out, and I did a little bit of a live on Facebook, and there was nobody there but me at that time. And I got the cauldron and the fire pit out because it was midnight my time. So that is, you know, we are literally in that thinning of the veil right now in this moment, because we've got through our midnight, you know. So New Zealand gets midnight first. So if we want to do I'm big about moving energy, yeah?
Yeah.
And using every tool we've got. So say the ladies in Miami, they've got their rally on the 5th of November.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're going after a particular very horrible entity on this planet. And so my thing is, what I want to ask, and this is why I rang today, is if on the 5th of November we can all meme or one post that goes at that doctor.
Yeah.
That surgeon.
I
So
love
we
that.
can start a wave. Yeah. So we want to start a wave here from, say New Zealand, if I can get Rex Landy on board.
Yeah.
Start posting New Zealand because they get first light. Then us Aussies go, you know, we start posting. We go at her from here and we start like a Mexican kind of wave around the planet.
I
and we do
love it.
Algorithm magic. Yeah. So that was why I rang. I just rang to ask the guys in the chat
I'm
if we
in.
could post something to go after Yeet the Tea for the Miami girls.
I love it so much. I think that's really just such a gorgeous and beautiful and creative idea. I am all in. Will you DM me on Twitter? Are we Twitter friends also?
I believe we are. Yeah, I think
Okay.
I stalk you just about everywhere I can.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, good. DM me on Twitter because that's my biggest platform, and let's we'll chit chat about it in the DMs, and then we'll give it a day. We'll basically prep women that this is going to happen, and then we'll launch it. So let's absolutely do this. I love this idea. I think it would be really beautiful and really fun. I love it.
Oh, that would be awesome, Amy. Because, you know, right now, let's wake up the wise, wicked women, the warriors and the witches.
Yeah.
We'll wake them all.
Yeah, we'll wake them all up. I love it. Oh, I'm so glad you called, and I'm so glad we got to chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking my call. I just think use women over there, and this tour is amazing. Thank you so much, because sometimes you do feel alone, and we are in the middle of nowhere here in Australia, and you guys in the UK and the guys in America, you have my heart and you have my soul.
I love you so much. I love it so much. Oh, thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
I love you for now.
Okay.
I'll talk to you later.
Okay,
Bye,
cool.
guys.
Bye. Oh, my friends, my sweet friends, all of my friends in the chat, I think I'm gonna leave it there. This is so beautiful. People who are in the chat, Deprogrammer PS is dropping some book bombs. She's mentioned The Chalice and the Blade. She's mentioned Mary Daly, The Quintessence, and Eco Psychology. She's mentioned The Great Cosmic Mother by Monica Zhu. These are all amazing books. These books ground us us in our lineage. Mary Daly, especially, she is both an anthropologist and a futurist. So she is looking backwards at the lineage that women have, and she is looking forward to the future. She is always calling out the tactics of the patriarchy. When I have used words like remember, this is very Mary Daly. She re-puts words together. She re-languages things, and we must, I think Mary Daly has a lot of great tactics. Maybe I'll do one of these shows about Mary Daly. Maybe the fabulous Ms. Kay Yang might do one on Mary Daly with me, because a great thing, what we are facing is an assault on our language, and Mary Daly is great at re-languaging things in a way that reclaims our feminine power and that exposes the patriarchal undermining of our women's language. So I think she would be a very good person to do one of these about and to have a conversation about, because even though she wrote in the 80s and 90s, her work is so visionary, and I think it can really help us expose what's going on right now. She's a great writer. But I really want to thank everyone for being in the chat. This is not, I want to mention again the books that I was talking about. So The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. I was also talking about protecting the gift, which is about kids, by Gavin de Becker. I was not exhaustive, because the books themselves are incredibly exhaustive. And so I may do a part 2, a part 3, to get more into them. Oh, Maria Gambudis is on my, she's on my coffee table right now. Hold on, wait. This is on my coffee table. Maria Gambudis, The Language of the Goddess, with a foreword by Joseph Campbell, who's all about the archetypes. And you'll see she does all this great archiving and has these great images and symbols. Wait, it's another page, like these goddess images in all kinds of different ways. She's such a great resource, and I keep this on my coffee table because it's just one of those cool coffee table books where it's really informative, but it's really beautiful to look at as well. So I thank you all for being in the chat so much. This is really fun. Everyone should read The Gift of Fear. Please read it. It's one of the foundational books for me. So you will, whether you like it or not, you will hear me talking about it again and again, because it's really foundational to this kind of work. And you'll hear me talking about women's books as well. It happens to be a man who's written it. But I like him because he is an expert on safeguarding. He has done a lot of this work, and these things are going hand in hand. And what I like is that this is a man talking about the intuition and how pivotal it is to literal practical safeguarding. I could talk about Mary Daly all day as well. She's coming at the intuition from an entirely different perspective, but I really want to ground the intuition in the practical. I really want to draw you into my work of Little Red Reverberations. I really want to draw women in with the practical values of the intuition, and then we can go into the deeper psychological values of why these things are so important to ourselves as women. So this is my aim, is to draw you in with the practical, and then give more and more and more, deeper and deeper and deeper grounding into this. So I thank you. I thank you, Kay Yang, for being in the chat today. Stone Crow, thank you so very much, Stone the Crow, Crone for being in the chat today. Thank you, Laura. It was great to talk to you. Jacqueline, it was great to talk to you. Abel, it was great to talk to you. Jennifer, I love seeing you in the chat. Sergeant Nerd Fangirl, Dragon Kid again, M, Spiky Turf, Z, Ministry of Turvin. I really appreciate this community that we're beginning to build, and I want to keep building it because I really want to. I think that is what has been really inspiring for me with this tour that Kelly J. Keene is doing. I mean, she's here. She's she has her celebrity. She's here from the UK. It's wonderful, and what we can do is use this as an opportunity to build our own community, to really keep giving foundation to the community that exists among women, to keep building it. She's offering something, and the offering is for us to seize. So it's for us to seize and do something with it. And that is what I want to do. I'm not going to let this opportunity go by without using it to do something for all of us. And the more that we have community, the more we really will be resilient. This community acts as its own kind of integrity. This community gives us foundation. It gives us support. And the more we can support one another in this, again, the more resiliency it builds into our own movement. And so I encourage us all to follow one another. Stone the Crow, I'm going to absolutely go look at your YouTube channel right after this. Everyone follow Deprogrammer and Partners for Ethical Care if you are not already. Anyone who has a channel, always tell me, because I have a lot of people that I follow. I want to try to follow as many women as possible. So just always tell me if I should be looking at your channel. Do click like, do click subscribe, do share the video, make a comment. I really appreciate it. It's really useful to what I'm doing. Thank you, Femilise Lism, for reminding me of that. And also, I appreciate you all. They will not shut us up. We will win, as KJK says, and we will not be silenced. I appreciate you all. Good night.